Hello. So welcome all to Season 14 of the Not So Casual Pokemon League, and this is the first of hopefully many team building videos I'm making for this season. Also, sorry if you hear my cat meowing in the background. She loves to be part of things. So, first I'm going to do a little bit of a quick once-over of my team for the season, as this is the first team building video, and then after that I'm going to go into my preps for week 1. So, as we can see here, I have, in past seasons, the last 2 seasons, I've done sort of gimmick teams. Last season I only did Pokemon without legs. Team before that I did, like, quote-unquote villain Pokemon. So, this season though, we have a bunch of new Pokemon, specifically Mega Evolutions, and I decided I just wanted to draft a more normal team based around whichever Mega Evolution I wanted the most. So, for this team, the first pick I drafted was actually Darkrai, because it was still open, and in my opinion is the best Mon that we should keep legal. Dragapult is obviously better, but I was on the ban side of that vote. Unfortunately, I did not pass, so there is a Dragapult in this pool, who is actually my opponent for week 1, but we'll get into that in a bit. Anyway, I picked Darkrai, who is just very fast, very strong. We have sleep moves banned on it, so you can't go fishing for a win with Hypnosis, but it's still incredibly just fast and strong with respectable bulk, because it has so many stats. My next pick was Mega Dragalge, who is one of the new Megas, and is really interesting because it has Regenerator. Its power is a little low for a Mega. It's only 132 special attack, I believe, with no damage boosting ability, but its special defense is absurd, and its physical defense is acceptable, and it has Regenerator, which is obviously an incredible ability. Most Megas have no way to passively heal. You know, some of them have healing moves, but this is actually the only Mega Evolution with Regenerator, which is just really nice to have when you have good overall stats. So, we have Mega Dragalge here. Very excited to use it. Then there's Zapdos, who I just picked because it's one of the most reliable Pokemon in general. Just kind of super solid, super good, you know, decent enough bulk with really good defensive typing, good offense, great move pool. Just a solid Pokemon overall, especially when it was early in the draft. I didn't know what the rest of my team would look like. I didn't know what would get sniped, so I just wanted a super reliable, solid Pokemon no matter what happened. I don't remember exact draft order, but after that I ended up getting something like Florges, Metagross, Silvally, something like that. Florges is a pretty solid Pokemon. It's very bad against steel types and pretty bad against fire types, and not great against poison. Obviously, the types that Fairy is bad against because it's super limited in terms of coverage. If it had Mystical Fire, it would be a lot better, but I kind of appreciate it for being a tanky Wish user at, you know, a cheap price. At least tanky on the special side. Sort of similar defensive stats to Mega Dragalge, actually, but obviously no Regenerator. Metagross, I like sort of for similar reasons for Zapdos, as it just has just a kind of giant ball of stats. It's got really high attack, defense, okay special bulk. It's a little slow, but it has priority, and it's just this giant ball of stats. And also in between Gens 7, 8, and 9, I forget exactly when it got what move, it learned Heavy Slam and Knockoff, and Psychic Fangs, which actually expand its options quite a bit. Psychic Fangs is a fully accurate Psychic move as opposed to the Zen Headbutt it had before. Heavy Slam, given how heavy Metagross is 120 base power versus most things. And Knockoff is just really good against kind of everything. Just removing items is very strong. Silvally is one of my personal favorite draft picks. It's just super flexible. Obviously, its whole gimmick is that it can there's an item for each type, and it can choose its type based on the item, or if you just give it a regular item, it's normal type. Silvally is just really fun. It's really interesting to look at each matchup and think, hey, what's the best type for this matchup? And really kind of play around there. And it's also interesting because it has good physical, its signature move is a very strong physical attack, 120 power that matches its type. But its special moves is where it has the best coverage, so you kind of are sort of incentivized to run mixed, which is interesting because it has 95 in every stat, which can be a little painful, but you have to get kind of creative with it, which I really like. Tauros Paldea is an interesting one. We actually, before the season, treated them, the 3 separate forms, as 3 separate picks. But there was a vote this season, and we actually decided to combine them all into one pick. So for one slot, you get the option to run the Fire-Water, the Fire-Fighting, or the Pure Fire. The Fire-Fighting, Water-Fighting, or Pure Fighting type. they all have the same abilities, Intimidate, Kudchu, and some other third one that doesn't matter. And the same stats, just kind of a type change with the move pool changes you'd expect from that. But both the fire and water ones have pretty interesting move pools. The water one has Aqua Jet, Wave Crash, and a few things like that. And the fire one has Will-O-Wisp, which is really, really nice, among some other stuff. So, pretty cool Pokemon. Its stats are a little weak for this point value, but you get the flexibility with it. So, as you can see, I'm leaning a lot to flexibility with these two picks. Lycanroc Dusk is a pretty nice speed threat, and it has really good coverage. It's got like roughly, I think, 117 attack, 110 speed, something like that, but it has Tough Claws, which makes that attack a lot stronger than it looks. Close Combat, which almost turns it into a pseudo-fighting type offensively. Tough Claws, Close Combat's really, really strong. And then it has some nice coverage like Crunch, Psychic Fang, Sucker Punch, I think Iron Head, stuff like that. And then also, it is the only Pokemon in the game, alongside its other form, to have a Rock Priority move in Accelerock, which is very valuable in some matchups. As mentioned earlier, Florges I picked up actually fairly early in the draft because the Fairy types were going quickly and I didn't want to lose one, or I didn't want to not have one. I originally wanted Sylveon, but I settled for Florges. And then Donphan, the draft doesn't have a ground type at this point, and my removal at this point is Zapdos and Silvally and Florges, all of whom would like to be able to do something else if the time arrives, so even more removal with Donphan's nice. This can spin instead of to fog, so if I'm playing a hazard-heavy game, I don't need to get rid of my own hazards. It's a rock setter of its own, so I don't need to use Metagross for that, or I guess Lycanroc. Yeah, it's just Donphan's a pretty solid low tier, mid-low tier. Good physical bulk, hazards, removal, all that. Gourgeist I just picked up to help my matchup against ground types, because weakness, weakness, sometimes a weakness, weakness. Zapdos' immunity, Silvally, depends on the type, but I just wanted one other check to ground type, just to be able to bring out in as the situation demands. And then Walrein, I just had a point left, and it's good versus ice types, who can, I guess, sometimes be a problem for these guys. So yeah, that's the team I have this season. I think I did pretty well with the draft. It's, there's some speed here, there's some, I think I did a decent job with speed, okay job with hazards. I don't have the best setting in the world. There's Toxic Spikes from Dragalge, and then I got all the way down to Donphan for like a super reliable rock setter, but it's fine. And then defensively, I have, Mega Dragalge and Zapdos, I feel like is very solid defensively, and then Metagross mangles most ice types, which is pretty good. Tauros Bodeo also resists ice in both forms, so I think the draft has got some good chops defensively. It might be a little reliant on Florges, because otherwise Metagross, Tauros, Silvally can't heal without Florges wishes. So if I have to find myself bringing Florges a lot, that might be a little painful. I could see maybe if the person who got Sylveon wants to trade or something. But regardless, I think it's still decent defensively. And yeah, what I really like is the flexibility. Sylveon, Tauros have so much flexibility between them, which is really fun, and just lets me plan a lot for each matchup. Okay, so speaking of matchups, my first opponent, as I alluded to earlier, is Hunter. Hunter is a very good player. He, I believe, has always made playoffs, or at least almost always made playoffs. He's known for being old reliable in a sense. Like he'll always draft some sort of momentum team, usually centered around Tapu Koko, but Dragapult actually made it to him, so he took the best Pokemon in the format. And then there's some regenerators to kind of do a single regenerator here to do kind of the backbone of the defense on the team, and his playstyle is very much, I'm going to switch by using Volt Switch, U-turn, whatever, I'm going to be faster than you, I'm going to pivot a lot, I have regenerators to keep the team healthy, and we're going to play a grindy game where I'm always one step ahead until you're weak enough for me to win with, some sweeper, like Mega Gyarados here. So, it's straightforward, it's reliable, it works, there's a reason he always makes playoffs. Very, very scary opponent, and obviously Dragapult is the best in the business for this. It's the best in the business for a lot of things. Slowking Galar, also the best regenerator, but again, very pricey. As you can see, this team, across the first 6 picks, has spent most of its points already, and then there's some low tiers here, which are relevant, because we'll get to them in a little bit. So, obviously, big threat here, Dragapult. Big setup threat, Mega Gyarados. So those are kind of the 2 things I need to answer the most, but also I need to make sure I can actually get through these defensive picks. So if we... I'll have the matchup up here to the side as we go over my team. Oops, sorry. Let's move this to here. Oh, you saw my Music. Oh no. Okay, so matchup up here to the side, team over here. So if we look at first, I picked Darkrai. Obviously, Darkrai is just faster than everything he has. Besides Dragapult, really strong, really powerful. And I did Choice Scarf so that I could beat +1 Gyarados. It is possible to tie +2 Gyarados if you do max speed, but given that's the only thing I'm getting versus just running like this, I've decided to be kind of greedy with my EVs and just do only a tiny bit of speed, which this is what's necessary to beat +1 Gyarados with Scarf, and then almost full HP and 252 plus special attack. So this thing is going to be hitting pretty hard. Thunderbolt is to hit Gyarados, Dark Pulse hits everything else for at least neutral, besides Virizion, who I don't really care that much about. Just don't think it's that threatening for me. Don't think it's coming. And then the other two moves are Trick and Will-O-Wisp. So for Trick, the reason I have it is in case it gets to... If Hunter plays like a very stally game, like he has Mudsdale, Cryogonal, Screamtail, Ferrothorn, something like that, which is possible. He might try to really drag this out versus me. Then I want to be able to just cripple something with Choice Scarf and not have to have the item anymore. Will-O-Wisp is, in case I'm out against Gyarados, it's at full HP and Thunderbolt isn't enough. The ability to burn it can really save my ass, to put it bluntly. So that's kind of an option here. And then also there aren't really too many things on this team that like to take a Will-O-Wisp, besides Rotom Heat, but Rotom Heat doesn't love taking max power Dark Pulses either, so I think Will-O-Wisp is good to just kind of spread some status here. Yeah, it's solid. Also, Mudsdale can be a bit of a problem. I did a few practice games, and one thing that came out a lot was that Mudsdale does look good into my team, and specifically Toxic Earthquake Heavy Slam Mudsdale is very problematic for me. It hits everything here super effectively besides Zapdos, but Zapdos can't really do much back to it with the moves that I have. So Will-O-Wisp helps against that a bit too. Now Zapdos. Heat Wave is so that I can come in on Ferrothorn. I threaten killing it with Heat Wave, and also have Defog. If I don't have Heat Wave, he'll figure that out pretty soon, and then start using Ferrothorn against me, which I don't want. Volt Switch is for pivoting around, also in physical defense, also for Gyarados, because Gyarados is a huge threat. And then just Roost for healing. If I wanted to be better against Mudsdale, I could load up Toxic or Hurricane, but it feels hard to justify that looking at this team. Like, Hurricane is okay damage versus Ferrothorn, it's not great, and there's the mischance. It is true he doesn't really have good flying resists, but I don't think it's good enough to justify. If I knew for a fact he were bringing Mudsdale, I'd do it, but, there's a good chance he brings Ferrothorn instead, and I don't want to be sitting here without Heat Wave against Ferrothorn, which feels more disastrous to me than not having Toxic or Hurricane versus Mudsdale. But I'll think about it. There is a chance I switch to Hurricane before the game, so if you see Hurricane instead of Heat Wave during the game, that's why. But yeah, this is what I've got for now. Defog and Roost are basically non-negotiable. I need a way to clear hazards, and I need a way to heal. And so is Volt Switch. I need a way to threaten Gyarados and pivot. Dragalge Mega, very sadly, does not have a model on Showdown yet, so it's going to be a blank PNG when we play. It sucks, but whatever. I'm just running a fairly simple attack switch. This Focus Blast lets me hit Ferrothorn, Draco Meteor, and Sludge Bomb together let me hit everything else at least neutrally. It's not that strong for Slowking, but the idea there is I can just flip turn and stay ahead of it a bit. It does get Shadow Ball if I wanted to move to hit Slowking super effectively, but that doesn't seem as important to me as the other moves, or just, kind of pivoting and staying ahead of it and getting those regenerators off. And I do have Pokemon that can use a switch into Slowking decently well. Tauros is here to check two things. Mega Gyarados with Intimidate, resisting both stabs, and having enough defense to live Power Whip, and enough attack to one-shot it with close combat, and it's there to check Mudsdale. This spread is enough to use a substitute on uninvested -1 Mudsdale, because that Toxic set that we were talking about could be very problematic. So if it's like Toxic Earthquake, I can click Substitute. The substitute will live Earthquake. I get to click Raging Bull. If he uses Earthquake again, sub again, etc., etc. It's not ideal, but I needed something to beat Mudsdale, and this is what I got. But I couldn't sacrifice too much from the rest of the team to do so. I might still do Hurricane on Zapdos. We'll come back to that. Florges is here for longevity. If Hunter wants to play a long game with like toxic protect type shenanigans, I want to have aromatherapy, wish, baton pass. That's just a way to kind of keep the whole team pretty healthy. Moonblast is so I have end attack. It also does good damage to Gyarados. This is sort of the standard mixed bulk Florges because it has so much special defense you don't really need to invest in it at all. In fact, I could even do that. You just want to invest in health and physical defense. And yeah, that's how you run a standard mixed bulk Florges. And then Metagross is kind of an interesting player here. I thought about a few different sets. I thought about Assault Vest. I thought about Leftovers. I thought about Choice Band, but I ended up going with Cassid Berry because I wanted Stealth Rocks. That kind of cut Assault Vest out. But I still wanted to be able to lead this against Dragapult and know that I was in an advantageous matchup no matter what. Because if he clicks a U-turn, right, Metagross has a ton of physical defense, it's not going to do that much, and then I get to knock off whatever comes in, which is pretty valuable. And then if he does not click U-turn, say he clicks, Shadow Ball, this is the Ghost Resist Berry, we'll take that pretty well, and then we get to click knock off for some massive damage. So that's if he clicks Shadow Ball. If he clicks Will-O-Wisp, then we do knock off for a little, probably about half, maybe a little under, depending on his EVs. But also get rid of the item, which is pretty good, and then we can switch to Florges, who takes whatever Dragapult does pretty well, and can aromatherapy. Obviously, it could U-turn on us, that sucks, but whatever. But yeah, so the idea is we can lead Metagross against Dragapult. If it Wisps, we have aromatherapy. If it clicks a Ghost move, we have the Ghost Berry and Knockoff, and if it switches out, we get to knock off, I would assume, probably Rotom or Slowking. Probably Rotom. Maybe Ferrothorn, actually. But yeah, whatever it is, we get to remove the item from something that comes in. So yeah, that is the plan with Metagross. I think it's a really good lead, and Dragapult is a pretty good lead on his end, so I think he'll probably do that and switch out. And then with Metagross, we will get to do some progress early, and then get some rocks up, and hopefully keep it alive with Florges. So that's the team plan overall. I think it's solid. Definitely a scary game. I don't feel super confident going into this game. There's a lot of threats here, and really, Mudsdale is a problem for the build that I have. I could easily have brought, I don't know, Donphan with its own Toxic Spinner set and been really good against Mudsdale. I could bring, like, Toxic on Zapdos and be fine against it. But given what I feel like is the best thing against most of the team, it kind of makes it weak to Mudsdale, so I'm a little worried about him bringing it. And then besides that, I think I have a good loadout against this team, but we'll just have to see when the actual game takes place. See you then.